a sequence. Like you go inside a field, you go inside a field, and then you work inside the field for a long duration. And then in that process, you can do a variety of things, not only on your own, but actually with the participants in the community, and then carry out action research at the end of the day. So one can conceive of what you will do when you pick up your project to study the city. You can follow the 4 steps listed here. The first step consists in getting inside certain field sites. We call entry into a particular site. Before you go to grow house, before you go to anywhere. But in our course context, we will not be able to do that. If you want to, like you do a lot of secondary reading before you get gatekeeping on whether you really can get inside the networks of friendships, neighborhoods, and so on within that place. So if you talk about the question of access, the nature of the settings, and the way you negotiate with gatekeepers would be very important. But in our case, the gatekeepers are all our friends, so you would be able to skip that particular step. There are pros and cons in using friendship networks to get inside a public setting, of course. Your friends may be too friendly, and then you only get to know your friends, but not your enemies. And that would be a bad practice in terms of doing ethnography. But we cannot go into all those pros and cons today. You also need to do sampling within sites. You are inside Blue House. There are 20 units there. What do? Do you sample all 20 units to study? Or do you concentrate on only 1 unit there? And so on. I will skip all these preliminary preparatory stages of getting in a field. Imagine you are now in a field. What do you do when you set out to do ethnography? This time the question is not getting in, but actually getting inside a culture. And there are 3 particular methods I guess you will use in the following part of your course during studies of city culture. So they are the 3 methods most useful for. Sorry, the guest speakers are on their way, but they must have lost their way somewhere. I問你知訂啦嘛？ The guests will be here in 5 minutes, so we have to speed up. 3 typical methods you are going to use: participant observation, interview, and the creative use of documents and artifacts in the field. I will go over them very briefly and try to discuss these methods with our guests. So actually they use these methods when they organize participants in West Kowloon, or when they do their shooting in Shanghai Street. They actually use some of the principles of doing participant observation, good interview, and so on. So we can talk about those methods and practices in real-life context of 2 examples. But here I will give you the basic consideration, so that when you do participant observation, at least try to follow some of the precepts here. What do we mean by participant observation? That means you participate in a setting, in the normal transactions, normal daily interactions of that setting, in order to observe things that might be important to you. Remember, we have to uncover the web of significance. The best way to uncover the web is to observe as much as possible, as detailed as possible. I always call this the 10-brother approach to doing social research. 10兄弟方法，千里眼、順風耳not大喊十， you don't have to try and you do observation. But if you can look further, look wider, hear more, and then touch more, that would be the basic things to do in participant observation. The aim is always a wholesale recreation of a culture. The first thing you need to do is to stay there. Very often you will need to stay there for 3 months, 6 months, a prolonged period, so that you can really get inside the culture. One thing important is called maintaining rapport. If you go to Wan Chai and stay there, but look very un-Wan Chai, then you will be put out of that place not very long after. You need to build some kind of support linkage, some kinds of familiarity and sympathy with the residents in that place. What we call maintaining rapport, some kind of deep relation, sympathetic relation. How do you do that? If you are a normal person, you can do that. If you are a normal person, you can learn to do that by being courteous, by using common sense when doing interaction. Don't interrupt when people speak. Don't fall asleep when other people are talking. Dress properly, look properly, pronounce your Cantonese properly, and so on. There is no magic in maintaining rapport. Just be a kind person in a setting that is alien to you. Actually, there are more secrets to it, but we can't talk about those today. The main activity of doing participant observation is really hanging out. So if you are a nosy person, you will be very good at doing participant observation. Just be there, open your eyes, and then draw, write, listen, and record to get involved and be wide-eyed. Some of the most famous participant observation studies, like Street Corner Society, Outsiders, and Learning to Labor, they are all done by perfectly normal scholars who have perfectly normal eyes and ears. But what is abnormal is their patience. They study a topic, but then they go outside to a field for 2 years, 3 years, talking to all sorts of people walking by, animals happening to chance by. They talk to animals and human beings and so on. In order to recreate things like this, for example, Street Corner Society, published in the late 1950s, early 1960s, a very famous study on a street corner. Anthropologist William Foote White, for example, spent more than 2 years there, just hanging around a street corner, and then meeting people, talking to people, because he wanted to study street gangs, and you don't have a constitution for street gangs. It has to stay there and then to maintain contact with street gang leaders for more than a year, and then began interviewing later on. Outsiders, for example, by Howard Becker, talks about marijuana users in the United States in the 1960s. So you don't use a questionnaire and then ask how much glass you smoke last night. You have to smoke glass with them for half a year, and then you look very high, they look very high, and then you start interviewing. All of these are sweat and blood. Participant observation means that if there are street gangs stealing things, you go there to watch them steal things. Even if you, for ethical reasons, you don't steal yourself. Paul Willis, for example, another famous study of ethnography, spent 2.5 years following 12 school kids on how they study, how they stopped their study, how they fought with their teachers, inviting their teachers to a round of fights when they got put out of school. Loads of foul language that he has to learn in those 2 years of contact with the school acts that he studied. So all of these are examples of participant observation. You need to be there as participant or observer, and you need to take few notes, very large volume of few notes, abbreviated here as ON, MN, and TN. Code words like observational notes, methodological notes, and theoretical notes. Today we can't go into them. Observational notes would be most important. It is like a photocopying machine, which is your eyes. You bring there and then observe and record down every minute